The morning air carried the smell of fresh coffee and toasted bread as people moved in and out of Rosebud Cafe, busy with their own lives. At a corner table near the window sat Elena Hart, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. To the world, she was powerful, admired, and constantly surrounded by luxury. But that morning, none of it felt meaningful. The previous night, during a charity gala, she had heard the same words again and again. "You're so generous. You're changing lives. You're inspiring." Yet something about those compliments felt hollow. Her company donated millions every year, but Elena couldn't ignore a painful question that had been growing inside her. Did people care because they truly cared, or because cameras were watching? She had spent years building businesses, making deals, and solving problems with money. But deep down, she wondered if kindness still existed in its purest form, without recognition, without reward. So she made a decision that shocked even herself. For one day, she would disappear. No assistance, no security, no designer clothes, no black cars. Just her. She returned home, removed her expensive jewelry, changed into worn jeans, an old hoodie, and faded sneakers. She tied her hair into a messy bun and looked at herself in the mirror. For the first time in years, no one would see Elena Hart, the billionaire. They would only see a struggling woman. By noon, reality hit harder than expected. People avoided eye contact. A store employee watched her suspiciously. At a bakery, someone stepped ahead of her in line as if she didn't matter. The invisibility hurt more than she expected. By late afternoon, tired and emotionally drained, Elena sat on the sidewalk near the cafe. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten all day. That's when she noticed a man walking out of the cafe with a small paper bag and a little girl beside him. His clothes were worn. His shoes were old, but clean. The little girl held a teddy bear close to her chest. Elena lowered her gaze, embarrassed by her own situation. Then suddenly she heard a gentle voice. "Excuse me, are you okay?" She looked up. The man was standing in front of her, concern written across his face. His daughter looked at Elena with quiet, innocent curiosity. Elena tried to force a smile. "I'm fine." The man glanced at her trembling hands and hollow expression. "No," he said softly. "You're hungry." Before Elena could respond, he opened the paper bag. Inside was a burger, the only meal he had bought. He held it out toward her. "Please," he said, "take it." Elena froze. "But what about you?" The man smiled, though exhaustion showed in his eyes. "My daughter already ate at school." He paused, and "I can manage." The little girl tugged at his sleeve and whispered loud enough for Elena to hear. "Daddy, that was your dinner." Elena's chest tightened. She realized with a painful certainty that this man wasn't giving from abundance. He was giving from sacrifice. Elena stared at the burger in his hand, unable to move. Her throat tightened. All day she had been ignored by people who clearly had more than enough. She had seen expensive watches, luxury handbags, and half-finished meals thrown into trash bins, yet no one had stopped. And now, the first person willing to help her was a man who obviously had very little himself. Slowly, she accepted the food with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered. The man sat down beside her on the sidewalk as if helping strangers was the most natural thing in the world. His daughter sat between them, hugging her teddy bear. "I'm Daniel," he said. "Elena," she replied automatically, then quickly looked away, hoping he wouldn't recognize the name. He didn't react. The little girl smiled. "I'm Sophie." Elena took a small bite of the burger. It tasted simple, just bread, meat, and cheese. But in that moment, it felt like the warmest meal she had ever eaten. Daniel leaned back against the wall. "Rough day?" he asked. Elena gave a bitter laugh. "You could say that?" He nodded like he understood more than she had said. "Life does that sometimes." There was something calm about him. No pity, no judgment, just quiet kindness. Elena studied him. His hands were rough, covered in small cuts, the hands of someone who worked hard every day. "You shouldn't have given me this," she said softly. "It was your dinner." Daniel shrugged. "I'll eat tomorrow." Elena turned to him. "That doesn't bother you?" He looked at Sophie before answering. 3 years ago, my wife passed away. His voice stayed steady, but the pain underneath was impossible to miss. She used to tell me something when money was tight. He smiled faintly. If we still have enough to share, then we're not truly poor. Elena felt something crack inside her. Daniel continued, eyes on the street ahead. I'm a single dad now. Some weeks are hard. Rent, groceries, school supplies. He exhaled. But Sophie watches everything I do. Sophie looked up at him proudly. Daniel's voice softened. If I teach her to protect every last thing we have, she'll grow up afraid. He paused. But if I teach her to share, even when it hurts, maybe she'll grow up rich in the ways that matter. Elena lowered her eyes. For years, she had measured wealth in numbers. Sitting beside Daniel, she began to wonder if she had misunderstood wealth all along. That evening, after Daniel and Sophie left, Elena remained on the sidewalk long after the sun had disappeared. The city still moved around her, cars passing, people rushing home, cafe lights glowing warmly behind glass, but everything felt different now. She kept replaying Daniel's words in her mind. If we still have enough to share, then we're not truly poor. For years, Elena had believed generosity came from abundance. You earned millions, then gave thousands. You built success, then donated what you could spare. That was how charity worked in her world. But Daniel had shattered that belief in a single moment. He hadn't shared what was extra. He had shared what he needed. And somehow that made his kindness feel immeasurably bigger than every public donation Elena had ever made. Her phone buzzed inside her backpack. It was her head of security. Ma'am, we've located you. The team is ready whenever you want pickup. Elena stared at the screen. For the first time, she didn't want to return to her old world just yet. Instead, she asked, Can you find someone for me? Of course. A man named Daniel. Single father. Little girl named Sophie. I need to know everything about his situation, but quietly, no contact. By midnight, the report arrived. Elena opened it in silence. Daniel worked construction when work was available. Some weeks he got full shifts. Some weeks he got almost nothing. 3 years earlier, his wife had died after a long illness. Medical debt had consumed their savings. Rent payments were frequently late. His fridge was often nearly empty by the end of the month. Elena stopped reading for a moment, her eyes burning. The burger. That burger had probably been all he had until the next day, and he gave it away without hesitation. Not because he wanted praise. Not because cameras were rolling. Not because he expected anything back. He simply saw someone hurting and responded. Elena felt ashamed. Not of being rich, but of how protected wealth had made her. She had spent years funding programs, foundations, and campaigns from conference rooms and board meetings. Useful? Yes. Important? Absolutely. But distant. Daniel had done something money alone couldn't buy. He made another human feel seen. Elena closed the report and wiped her eyes. By morning, she had made a decision. This wouldn't end as a lesson she simply admired. It would change how she lived. The next afternoon, Daniel returned to Rosebud Cafe after work, exhausted and covered in dust. Sophie walked beside him, swinging her small backpack and humming to herself. It had been an ordinary day, long hours, sore muscles, and the familiar mental math of bills he still needed to pay. As he reached the cafe entrance, he noticed something unusual. 2 black SUVs were parked across the street. Men in suits stood nearby. Daniel immediately felt uneasy. Stay close, Soph, he said quietly. Before he could step away, a woman walked toward him. Clean hair, elegant coat, calm posture. For a second, he didn't recognize her. Then his eyes widened. It was Elena, the woman from yesterday, but she looked completely different. Daniel stared in confusion. You... Elena stopped in front of him, emotion visible in her eyes. I owe you the truth. Sophie squinted, then gasped. Daddy, she looks rich. Despite the tension, Daniel almost smiled. Elena took a slow breath. My full name is Elena Hart. Silence. Daniel frowned, trying to place the name. Then realization hit. The billionaire. The one whose face appeared in magazines, interviews, and business news. His expression changed from confusion to disbelief. You're that Elena Hart? She nodded. Yes. Daniel looked stunned. So yesterday was, what, some kind of experiment? The question carried hurt more than anger. Elena didn't dodge it. Yes, she said softly. I wanted to know if kindness still existed when there was nothing to gain. Daniel looked away, jaw tight. That's a dangerous game. I know. No, you don't, he said, voice shaking slightly. For you, being poor lasted one day. For people like us, there's no costume to take off. His words landed hard. Elena accepted them. You're right. There was no defense, only truth. After a long silence, she said, But what you gave me yesterday changed me. She handed him a folder. Inside were documents. Paid rent for 5 years, a college trust for Sophie, full debt cancellation, and one final page. A job offer, not charity. A leadership position in her foundation, helping design programs for struggling single parents. Daniel stared at the papers, speechless. Why me, he whispered. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Because you taught me something money never could. She looked at Sophie, then back at him. You were hungry, exhausted, and struggling, yet you still gave away your last meal. Her voice broke. That is what real wealth looks like. Sophie smiled and squeezed her father's hand. Daniel swallowed hard. For the first time in years, he cried. Not because someone saved him, but because someone finally saw him. Morale. True wealth is not measured by what you own, but by what you are willing to give when giving costs you something. The richest hearts are often found in people with the least to spare.